Video games as a form of media have grown increasingly popular in the last 20 years, reaching millions, if not billions of players worldwide. They are popular, fun, and have become increasingly more entertaining over the years. Improvements in technology have meant that game designers are increasingly able to capture our attention, play with our emotions, and stimulate our minds. Like other forms of media, the stories told in video games through visual audio methods become embedded in our psyches, playing an increasingly important role in shaping how we see the world. Video games are important because they portray, represent, and perpetuate certain social constructs of truth about society, culture, and politics. As one of the most popular military shooters, the Call of Duty Modern Warfare franchise has sold over 75 million copies worldwide. While the game contains a hugely popular multiplayer mode, each game has been released with a single-player story designed to captivate its audience. Thematically, our research sought to investigate how visuality in military-based video games utilizes political, social, and cultural anxieties and what effect this may have on our perceptions of international conflict, actors, and politics. More specifically, how does the Call of Duty Modern Warfare franchise influence our perception of conflict and international relations? Drawing on Robinson, a prominent writer on the link between video games and militarism, we take a qualitative approach. This approach focuses on the interpretation of visual portrayals of Russia within the Call of Duty Modern Warfare franchise. We identify the existence of militaristic themes within Call of Duty and focus on two prominent categories of visuality which could be linked with the portrayal of Russia. Firstly, the geographies of violence. This visual signifier recognizes that the spaces in which aesthetic representations occur are important elements in the constitution of narrative and visual meaning. For example, in the portrayal of Russia, what aesthetic representations of geographical spaces are Russians portrayed in alongside the existence of violence? Secondly, we identify the importance of the aesthetic representation of military technology that Russia and Russian nationals are shown using, as well as the aesthetic representations of the violence caused by these weapons. To answer these questions, we will focus on a number of concepts which influence our perceptions of international conflict and politics by focusing on the portrayal of Russia in the single-player campaigns of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare series. The visual appeal is an incredibly important part of why we play video games. Within modern military shooters, the spectacle of war has proven particularly effective in keeping our attention. Increasingly powerful gaming technology has allowed military shooters to progress so far that they are able to visualize war in an almost photorealistic manner. The outcome is a sanitized version of war, often focused on the spectacle of visual effects produced by military technologies, which detracts from the brutal nature of violence. As a political concept, the ideology of militarism weighs heavily in modern warfare, where everything is portrayed through the eyes of skilled soldiers and every problem has a military solution. For example, the player is given the opportunity to simulate the use of modern military technology, from small arms to military vehicles and even chemical weapons. The player is also immersed in squad structures and is tasked with executing objectives based on military missions. In stunning, near photorealism, Call of Duty provides a closely representative simulation of modern war and ability to wield many of the formidable tools thereof, which help make it an incredible, immersive experience. To justify militarism, there is of course the need to legitimize this way of thinking. Whilst there are several ways to do this, one of them is to create fear by providing a convincing and threatening political enemy, partially through visual representations. Modern military shooters can successfully develop emotionally engaging enemies using visual representations of real-world nationalities. Therefore, it is possible to question whether they can influence our perceptions of the nationalities they portray. Deaths may be present, but they are legitimized, seen as a necessary evil or a sacrifice for the greater good. This abstracted form of violence plays a crucial role in presenting the war as a virtuous war with clearly delineated sides in which one side is righteous while the other is a shadowy menace that kills mercilessly and needs to be stopped at all costs. While there are numerous examples of gameplay missions where executions and other forms of violence are present, there is one example that has pushed the limit of the level of violence that can be shown in video games forever. What impact does having the ability to execute this form of terrorist violence in a first-person shooter have on the video game industry? How does this influence you as a player? Before getting into the political conception of modern warfare, let's have a closer look at the mission design of this level. The game places you undercover on the side of a Russian terrorist. Right before the mayhem unfolds, the head of this terrorist organization tells you not to speak Russian in an attempt at covering up the Russian origin of this attack. Coming from the American game development company Infinity Ward, one might ask what the political intentions of the developers behind this game were. Within modern military shooters, can the portrayal of a virtual other based on real-world nationalities truly remain politically neutral?
I don't think it's a political game.
Really?
But the thing is that people read into that in different ways. Right?
Yeah, that's a tough, what do you mean by political?
That doesn't mean anything.
Let's now highlight a couple of mission sequences and see how Russians have been portrayed in the newest Modern Warfare game. Geographically speaking, this mission takes place in a fictional war-torn Middle Eastern city. The civilians are caught between the front lines of the Western-backed rebels and a breakaway part of the Russian military. The level design highlights the militarization of civilian society and how the Russians are attacking civilians with chemical weapons.
Keep behind me.
Yes, Papa, I will.
Okay, that's my girl. Do as I say, and you will be safe. You're not far. Don't breathe. It's poison. You're very far away.
Although having mostly advanced military resources, here the Russian military soldiers are portrayed in a different way. In this mission, people are hanged from a crane in the center of town in retaliation for the killing of Russian soldiers. This war crime is committed publicly to act as a deterrent for the civilian population and the rebel groups. The mission sequence occurs during a gas attack by Russians on a fictional city and shows a Russian soldier entering a civilian house. Despite there being no threat, he proceeds to attack the family, killing the father before going after the children. The Russian soldier is clearly identified by his uniform and gas mask.
Piece of shit, child! Hide all you want! You're stuck in here with me!
We found that the Call of Duty Modern Warfare series is inextricably linked with the notion of political violence. Militaristic discourse and ideology emerged as particularly central to the narratives of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Russian nationals are consistently visually present in geographical spaces associated with many forms of political violence. They are also visually represented utilizing many forms of military technology that have a multitude of violent outcomes. These visual representations clearly frame Russia as the enemy and principal aggressor in the international sphere. Therefore, the significance of video games in visual representations of the other lies both in the creation of perceptions and the ability to reinforce existing perceptions of the other. Military shooters based in reality are particularly important in this regard as they make concerted efforts to portray engaging political enemies. Parallels can be drawn to the portrayal of Middle Easterners in military shooters post 9/11, whereby a certain group is not only clearly framed as the enemy, but additionally their objectives and motivations are simplified and caricaturized. The repeated framing of certain groups in media and the pervasiveness of these images across various media make for easily identifiable outgroups marked by their otherness. We find that visual representations in video games have the potential to play a role in how we perceive international conflict, actors, and politics. We should not condemn the entire genre as military propaganda. Rather, we need to examine how individual titles approach political violence and representation. Video games are not static artifacts, but have the ability to influence social discourses in subtle ways.